Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today we'll be uncovering how growth-driven teams are working smarter to optimize their marketing ROI. I'm Sally Lopez. I'm the Senior Director of Marketing Programs and Operations at the CMO Council, and I'll be your host today. CMO Council research has shown that CMOs are expected to drive growth within the organization. In fact, it is their main mandate. In today's economic climate with workforce and budget reductions, CMOs have to work smarter to drive greater efficiency and accelerate revenue growth. To do this, marketers need to hone in on digitizing the customer engagement journey. As you build your technology budget for 2021, it's time to consider how intelligent virtual assistants can help alleviate the stress on your workforce and budget while finding more sales-ready leads and generating more pipeline than ever before. I'm joined today by three incredible thought leaders: Jason Rose, the CMO at Pure Storage, Nipul Chokshi, the VP of Marketing at Dun & Bradstreet, and Rashmi Patel, CMO at Conversica. I'm going to begin today by revealing some telling statistics from recent CMO Council research. From there, Jason's going to highlight his best practice insights on meeting the needs of the connected consumer today. Following that, Nipul is going to walk us through a transformation case study on bridging marketing and sales to align customer experience. Then Rashmi will walk us through a strategic, technology-driven path to successful lead identification and conversion. At the end, we'll leave some time for an audience Q&A, but please don't hesitate to pose your questions at any time during the webinar, and we'll make sure to take note. So with that, let's begin. So I'm giving you all a sneak peek. This is research that we're actually not releasing until next week, so don't tell anyone I'm sharing this. But we're going to be releasing some consumer research. It's based on a poll of 2,000 consumers across 5 age groups. And it's our second year doing this poll. In this survey, we're asking consumers how they like to engage with the brands that they do business with. And we ask them a range of questions like, what types of channels do you use when you're in the research and discovery stage, whether that be website, social media, in-person events, etc. We ask things like, what do you like to use and which channels do you like to use when the situation becomes critical, when there's really a problem? So we ask a range of these questions, and we ask them, if you had your choice, would you prefer to engage with brands in a digital-only environment, in a physical-only environment, or with a blend of both physical and digital channels? What I thought was extremely interesting was that last year, only 1 year ago, 85% said that they wanted a blend of physical and digital, with only 10% saying that they really only wanted digital. Today, 1 year later, only 71% are saying that they care to have that blend. Physical has gone up very slightly, but digital went up quite a bit. It doubled, more than doubled, which is really telling as to these digital trends on the rise and the fact that consumers really at any moment in their journey are increasingly not caring about engaging with somebody, whether it's on the phone or in person. They're really willing to do things in a purely digital environment. And in fact, that's what they want. So again, very telling statistic that we're going to be releasing next week. In another recent CMO Council study, we saw that brands admitted that they aren't ready to take on the demands of the modern customer. We literally asked that question: is your organization prepared to take on the demands of the modern customer? And while 20% said yes, so 1 in 5 felt like they were, 73% said only partially, with some wins and some losses expected. So basically like, we'll win some, we'll lose some, right? Not great, not a great showing of confidence from our marketing leaders here. We asked marketers in a more specific study that really related on how they're communicating with their consumers and how their consumers are communicating back with them. What are the types of conversations and what describes the depth of the conversations you're having with customers? And 43%, so the majority, said that they are actively collecting these conversations across multiple channels, so in an omnichannel environment, but they're not yet having real-time or bi-directional conversations. Another 23% said they're really struggling to have those substantive conversations with customers, but they're working towards it. And then another 12 plus 3% said basically we're talking to them, they're not talking back to us. So they're really struggling to actually meet those expectations that we all know our consumers have of real-time, rich engagement. And so again, these are some really, really telling statistics that show us not only that consumers are increasingly moving to digital, but that brands aren't really meeting these expectations. They're not able to engage with them in real time and in a way that is really meaningful. The last statistic I wanted to bring up before we jump in and start chatting with our panelists is that marketing and sales teams aren't yet aligned. Now, this is really important because as we're seeing the customer journey become more and more digital, cross-functional alignment is increasingly important. And the lines are so blurry between sales and marketing. Now, obviously, that's always been the case, but especially in this digital environment, it's really important that we bridge some of those gaps and that we really look at that customer journey through the lens of a connected marketing and sales team. And yet, when we asked marketing leaders how they felt about their alignment efforts with different cross-functional stakeholders, more than 1 in 3 marketers felt that they were only partially or really not well aligned at all with their sales counterparts. So that was disappointing. Truth be told, marketers were pretty harsh across the board about how they felt that collaboration was going with their cross-functional peers. And so certainly this is an area that needs to be dug into quite a bit more as we continue to look forward and talk about best practices with our marketers. So with that, and setting the stage on that, I wanted to now take some time to actually chat with Jason and dig into some of these research points a little bit with him. Now, Jason, we've spoken about, this move to digital and how important it is to digitize that entire customer journey. And in fact, everybody here knows it's no secret that consumers are increasingly interacting with brands in a purely digital environment. Could you walk us through how that has shifted over recent years, and especially in recent months, and what that means for brands as they start thinking about their digital and their MarTech investments?
Great. Well, Sally, thank you for the question and an opportunity to speak to the audience today. It's great to be on the line with you, and really appreciate the sneak peek of the research you just shared. I thought it was interesting, the 1 in 3 marketers feeling like they had completely strong alignment with their sales team. I'm actually missing my quarterly sales review, a portion of it right now with my sales team as we speak here. It actually just happened to move into this webinar section. So right after this, I'm jumping right back in with our sales team. So got to really make sure you address that alignment. And it's interesting when people sometimes ask me, how do you measure marketing success? And I think there's a lot of technical answers to that question. But, for me, it comes back to as being kind of the marketing leader in an organization. It's how happy is my CEO and how happy is my head of sales. Right? And if those two folks are both in good places vis-a-vis marketing, I feel like myself and the entire team are likely doing a good job, not only across the KPIs. I think we can kind of get very hung up on the numbers, but also in terms of the relationship and the perceived value of marketing, which, again, I think there's been a lot of focus over the last couple of years on marketing ROI, which I think is extremely important, but I don't want to underestimate the intangible relationship value that marketing brings to the table with leaders across the organizations we serve. Now, obviously, your question kind of speaks more to how are we digitizing more of that journey. And I think, it's interesting. I think a lot of, kind of the work has been done to take and make our web content much more optimized to different types of buyers. I know at Pure, we serve everything from storage admins, which are going to want very technical information specific to the products and solutions that they're evaluating, to more infrastructure architects, which are going to take a bit of a broader view and are also looking at, what workloads do they keep on-prem in their data centers versus moving to the cloud, to CIOs, which are obviously moving away from being, I'll call it technology specialists, to really being stewards of a portfolio of capabilities, right? So if you think about those different levels, they have different needs in terms of the data and information they're looking for. And, as COVID hit, Pure Storage, for those of you that aren't familiar, provides, basically storage hardware. So all flash, really intelligent, kind of built storage arrays and technology to help everything from artificial intelligence workflows to your basic file systems kind of run at peak performance. Make sure you've got the right data protection, privacy, backup, and recovery available across those areas. So it tends to be a fairly technical sale, right? So one of the things that we've been doing as COVID kind of took hold is looking beyond, I'll call it, some of the standard, kind of marketing tools and tactics, and actually looking into the sales cycle. So we tended to drop boxes because new to me, I've actually spent pretty much my entire career in software. All of a sudden, I've got hardware to think about as well. So we would actually drop boxes on customer shipping docks to be installed in their data centers, and then we would proceed to work with them through a proof of concept. And obviously with COVID, a lot of that desire to have staff on site in the data centers or in other areas, especially entire teams of people from Pure showing up on that shipping dock, obviously became much more problematic. So I've actually set up within our marketing team what we call our Customer Solution Center. And our Customer Solution Center has actually been taking a lot of those proof of concepts, demos, and both virtualizing them. So now that we can fire up and do a proof of concept, even load consumer workloads onto our customer workloads, I should say, onto our equipment and do it all in a virtual environment. So it's much more than just thinking about what I would call traditional marketing assets. It's also looking at sales processes and going, what can we digitize? What can we put on the website behind a gate that we could actually get customers to sign up for, and then, have an assisted demo or a fully automated demo behind that to help advance sales cycles. So I think it's going beyond, what I'll call the kind of traditional elements of the marketing funnel and looking at those, kind of high value sales activities that can be digitalized and virtualized, especially, with many of the latest, cloud available technologies to help make some of those things happen.
Yeah, I think that is so telling, and I also love how you said how happy is the CEO and how happy is sales in terms of ranking how well a marketer is doing, and certainly starting to look at virtualizing some of these systems, looking at these high value sales activities, and really starting to implement what can we do here to really engage in a deeper way and start to create more sales ready leads. Obviously, this really necessitates that bridge between marketing and sales. And so as organizations look to bridge those gaps and really come together, what do they need to be thinking about? What do they need to be doing? And how do they need to be thinking about this digital journey in tandem?
Great question, Sally. And really, what it's doing for us at Pure is it's shining a very bright light on enablement, right? Because we're not just, I think we're moving a lot of salespeople's cheese, so to speak, to use an analogy from a book. If you haven't read it, Who Moved My Cheese is very interesting on how, teams and individuals need to adapt to change, right? And obviously, as we digitize more of these things, the enablement element of helping salespeople understand where to go, how to engage, how to get those high intent activities enacted and followed up in the shortest amount of time possible is really important. And then what exactly is involved in those activities? What are the prerequisites that a customer maybe needs to bring to the table to make that proof of concept successful? Who in the organization is the expert in terms of setting some of these new virtual environments up? We've done an extensive job of enabling our solution engineers across the world to really make sure that they can run these things effectively, efficiently, making sure that they have the right capacity and kind of set up to make sure that they get the performance they need to really make that customer experience sing in a digital realm. So I would say enablement is paramount. It's also agreeing with the sales team what are those high value activities, and then monitoring how often they're being used, what the conversion rates are. A lot of the standard measurements we have today, we need to think about how we're instrumenting them up front. Are we capturing those activities in Marketo or inside Salesforce or whichever marketing automation or CRM tool you're using to make sure that we can then measure both, I'll call it the conversion rates and utilization, but then also, any kind of follow-up or other activities that need to happen as a result, so we can make sure we have the right service level agreements to make all those things happen. And then it also actually requires an adaptation of your web experience as well, right, to make sure that these activities are discoverable, that there's the right qualification process. If there is an investment of resources, obviously you want to make sure you've got the right qualification level against those opportunities before you engage the resources to do those high value activities. So it really does require kind of an entire end-to-end thinking of both the funnel, the metrics by which you're going to measure success, the enablement of the sales team, and then the follow-up and qualification process for using those tactics as part of your journey.
Now, I know that, and you and I have spoken about how the move to digital has particularly impacted sales teams, and that traditional sales methods are increasingly looking to be part of a bygone era. What does that mean for how the modern enterprise needs to look at their sales teams today, and in terms of people, resources, and the technology that is needed to back them up today to really engage in that real-time, meaningful way and find those leads in a digital environment in some of the ways that you've been highlighting?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think as we look at kind of planning for next year, right, I think both sales and marketing traditional ways of doing things are changing quite drastically. I'll give you, for example, we're really looking pretty hard at the third-party sponsorships that we do as a company, i.e., sponsoring the major events with tens of thousands of people. And traditionally, you would set up a trade show booth and you get walking traffic. All of those events, certainly in 2020 and perhaps for a big part of 2021, have moved online. And what it's exposing is that the consumer behavior has really changed as well. I know, traditionally you would fly to, say, Las Vegas, you'd spend 3 days, you'd be out of the office, you'd be out of your normal routine. So when you, got out of the keynotes, you had your sessions you had penciled in, but maybe you had an hour here or there where you had some time set aside to actually go wander around the show floor and see the next cool technology. You'd run into solution engineers, salespeople, and usually, inside sales folks at those booths. You build a relationship and you probably discover some things you hadn't found before. Now, in a digital world, I know for myself, I set aside the time for the keynote, and then I'm back into email and into my regular meeting routine. And then maybe there's a session I want to go to, so I go to the session, and then I'm back into my email and my usual meeting routine, or maybe getting some work done, right? So I'm not going to set aside time to just browse through a quote-unquote virtual environment and hope I can find something, because, I'm still in my day-to-day. I still have my regular work to do. So what we've seen, and I'd be interested to hear from the audience as well, is that while we're still generating pipeline from those third-party events, the size of the pipeline has actually deteriorated quite significantly. So we're not seeing the same dollar values. We're seeing significantly less. And the quality actually is pretty good, but the kind of size of opportunity has certainly shrunk. So we're taking a hard look at what we do from a third party and first party perspective. So certainly that booth duty that many salespeople I think either love or dread is certainly changing in terms of how you meet and greet people. I think it's also having a really big effect on net new logos, right, or net new names, depending on how you look at things. Because I think during COVID, we've seen, at least from our data, certainly our existing customer base, our renewal rates and cross-sell, upsell have accelerated and increased during these times of uncertainty. But our net new logo progression and qualification has actually slowed down. While we still see the opportunities come in the top of the funnel, I think people are willing to take a look at new technologies. We've actually had a harder time converting them down through the funnel. And I think it requires two things. It requires, one, the sales team to take a little bit of a different mentality towards those net new logos, in that what you probably would have disqualified in 2019, and rightfully so, maybe requires a little more effort in 2020, because you can't invite them to the physical event in, say, Atlanta and have them show up and have a discussion about their business requirements at that event, right? You have to figure out new and different tactics to get those people in. So we've been doing things like virtual roundtables with customers. We've been kind of holding, kind of different types of panel discussions with executives, both at the, I'll call it, business level and technical level, really trying to cater to and in some ways fill the void of some of those physical tactics that have gone away, both for sales and for marketing, right? I think it impacts both teams equally.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. If nothing else, today is kind of forcing us to think differently, right, and engage in new ways based on restrictions that we have at play, but which can reveal a lot of new opportunities as well, to your point.
Absolutely, and we're in uncharted territory. So, really, I don't think anybody has a full playbook on how to move some of these kind of enterprise cycles that have been this way for many, many years, right, into a much more digitally focused journey. And, experiment early and often, kind of recognize success and things that aren't working early, and then double down on those investments. And I think it really behooves us as marketing leaders on the call, or if you're in the field, to really get closer together as a community to share those best practices, right?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Jason. We're going to catch up with you a little later in this webinar, but for now, I'm going to turn it over to Nipul and talk with you a little bit. Recently, you've actually gone through a transformation at Dun & Bradstreet to bridge your marketing and your sales team as one cohesive revenue team. Can you take us back to the beginning of that transformation and tell us a little bit more about why that decision was made in the first place?
Yeah, thanks, Ali, and hey everyone, great to be here, and really excited to talk about some of what we've experienced here at D&B from a marketing and sales transformation standpoint. A lot of this kind of ties back into your earlier points that you were making, Sally, in your unpublished or soon-to-be published research around the needs of the modern buyer, right? And so at D&B, Dun & Bradstreet, the company's been around for quite a while. Our solutions enable companies to grow and thrive. We have data, AI, and SaaS-based solutions to empower them to do that. My specific focus is on the sales and marketing solutions business unit at D&B, where our mission is to really empower B2B marketing and sales teams to increase engagement with buyers, to deliver growth through various solutions. We'll sell to data leaders in a marketing and sales team to help them clean, enrich, and unify their data. We'll help marketing leaders, do a better job of segmenting their audiences, engaging audiences through multiple channels, and measuring impact. And we have an ABM platform that we sell to help them do that. And then we sell to sales leaders. Sales leaders leverage our solution to make prospecting more effective. So as you can see, there are a variety of different constituencies, stakeholders in kind of our buyer at our buyers, and different value propositions that we can offer. What we were looking to do really, coming back to your question, Sally, is really drive growth and improve the customer experience. Whenever you have kind of this death matrix, if you will, of products and value propositions crossed over with all these different buyer personas, it's really important to make sure that the entire organization is aligned around the buyers, right? Rather than, running campaigns around individual products, which for us just resulted in a very poor customer experience, because what would wind up happening is, for example, a marketing leader would wind up getting, 5 different messages for the 5 different products and solutions that we sold for that marketing leader. And that was ultimately hindering customer experience and growth. And so our objective in terms of transforming our sales and marketing to be more aligned around the buyer, to be more customer-centric, if you will, was really to help drive growth and improve customer experience.
Yeah, it makes sense. And taking that customer-centric approach when you're thinking about alignment is really important, and I want to take an idea from there. So today, and we found in our research, and we published a study last year, that marketers really see themselves as the champions of trust with their customers. And so they're really becoming this customer champion within the organization. Do you feel that it's up to marketing to spearhead some of these more customer-centric transformation and alignment efforts like what you've undergone at Dun & Bradstreet?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our point of view is marketing is absolutely kind of that tip of the spear, if you will, when it comes to any sort of customer-centric transformations that you're making from a go-to-market standpoint, right? Marketing is in a very unique position to be able to understand the customer and the customer journey end to end, right? In terms of, like I said earlier, right? Like in our sales and marketing solutions business unit, we'll sell to data leaders, we'll sell to marketing leaders, and we'll sell to sales leaders. And just kind of mapping out that journey at the account level of, the value prop that a data leader gets from our solutions, how that complements the value that a marketing leader gets, and how that value prop, extends to sales leaders. Marketing's in a unique position to be able to kind of map that out. Now, having said that, I'm also a big believer of, I don't know who said this originally. I think it was like Tom Peters maybe, but marketing is too important to be left for marketing to just do, right? This is one of those situations where while marketing is the tip of the spear, it requires alignment and buy-in from, not just the executive team, but also just different parts of the company. The least of which is sales, customer success, the product team, and so on and so forth. So I think marketing is just because of its overall objective to drive a better buyer and customer experience, is just in a unique position to be that tip of the spear, if you will, when it comes to such customer-centric transformation.
Right. Really understand what that picture looks like because you're so close to the voice of the customer. And so it's like marketers really understand what those customers are looking for and what experience they're looking to have across their journey. And so having that voice, of course, with the cross-functional buy-in and executive buy-in like you're talking about, but having that voice is saying this is what the customer expects and this is why we need to spearhead this effort and really come together in whatever transformation we might be talking about. So I think that those are really important points that you raised. So let's get back to the transformation that you've undergone. Could you highlight for us what this process really was like. Obviously, we know no transformation comes without its challenges. But what were some of those challenges that you had to overcome, and some of the key learnings that came out of that?
Yeah, and I mean, the first thing that, everybody should just be on the same page with is this is not a one and done thing, right? Like, this is one of those things where you start it and it's a continuous journey and evolution of improvement, right? And so, in terms of driving the transformation, we saw kind of three key pillars at the outset. One is just kind of a shared outside-in approach to our go-to-market. Rather than running campaigns, for example, just about products, it was more about now running campaigns by persona and solution and the problems that we solve, right? So just kind of having that mentality of everything that we do, let's put the buyer first, really understand what is the buyer problem that we're looking to solve, and how is it that our solutions help those buyers solve those problems. That is just kind of a key pillar of our transformation, is when we design our marketing and sales campaigns, that ultimately is kind of the starting point for us. The second piece that we found is absolutely critical to the transformation is really this notion of, like, we needed to operate as one team. So from a sales standpoint, from a product standpoint, and from a marketing standpoint, everybody needed to be aligned on who are we targeting, what's our key value proposition, how are we thinking about success, right? Jason mentioned that he was missing his quarterly sales review. Coincidentally enough, it must be QBR season, because I'm doing the same. As part of our QBRs, we always have product, sales, and marketing together, right? So operating as a single team is absolutely critical for us as part of the transformation. And then the last piece, just being very tactical, piece that we found is just, we try to instill this in all our campaigns and our go-to-market thinking, is how can we be more responsive to buyer needs? How can we make sure, to your points earlier, like based on the research you talked about, buyers are more demanding than ever. And if, buyers are looking to, and if a brand hopes to engage with a buyer, they need to engage them with more relevant insights, more relevant offers, things that are more timely, right? And so here, just tactically speaking, again, because we sell kind of this value proposition for our customers, we were just fortunate to kind of leverage our own products so that we could be more data-driven in terms of, driving more responsive campaigns, right? So leveraging intent data, for example, where you can look at what are the types of searches that people are doing to really personalize the digital ads that you show them based on the interest that they're expressing and the buyer stage that they may be at. Looking at risk factors about the different businesses. So sales reps are able to look at, what kind of impact their buyers are experiencing as a result of COVID, just based on some proprietary AI algorithms that we have as part of our data set, to help them better optimize their talk track and to make different sorts of discounting proposals based on that, right? Using data and insights to prioritize sales outreach, using data and insights to be able to, drive more effective and more personalized digital interactions on the website. So we just found that it's really important to have campaigns that are a part of your go-to-market that are very responsive to your buyer needs. And so, from a transformation standpoint, that outside-in approach, the notion that we needed to operate as a single team between sales, product, and marketing, and making sure that we were as responsive as possible in terms of our campaigns. and delivering the right message at the right time in the right channel. Those are kind of the key three things that we found were foundational to our success.
Fantastic. Now, I am giggling to myself that I'm sitting here making you and Jason tell everybody about how important sales and marketing alignment is as I make you skip your sales review meetings. But I know
I've got my team
really
there. I'm sure Jason does too. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Nipul, what was the impact of all of these transformation efforts? Obviously, you went in with a certain intention. Coming out of that, do you feel that that customer-centric alignment that you were looking for is underway? What's the impact that you're seeing? Yeah,
so there are a couple of leading indicators that will measure, as part of this. Obviously, pipeline and revenue is the ultimate objective here, but some of the leading indicators that we're seeing that indicate success. So we have seen almost a 2x increase in engagement with our target buyers, right, across our digital channels. We have seen an increase in terms of the marketing contribution, so marketing sourced pipeline, and closed won revenue has increased as well. One point here that maybe I didn't emphasize enough earlier, when it came to the measurements, a key part of kind of that one team, operate as one team mantra that we adopted, just kind of having a clear agreement between the entire organization on what are the specific metrics that we're going to use for measuring results, as well as some of the leading indicators that we want to track on an ongoing basis as part of our QBRs and these ongoing checkpoints between different parts of the organization. That was absolutely critical, right? But ultimately, the kind of the output and the impact that we're seeing is definitely higher engagement and greater marketing impact to pipeline and revenue.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for walking us through that, Nipul. I know it was super interesting for me, and I'm sure for the listeners here. We'll circle back with you to ask a couple more questions at the end. But for now, I'm going to turn it to our last speaker, CMO Rashmi Vittal from Conversica. And we're going to talk a little bit about how technology comes into play all here. Right? So the first thing that I wanted to ask you, Rashmi, is obviously we've looked at the greatest challenges that brands are facing today is really that real-time customer engagement. And at the same time, we've seen that intelligent automation has migrated from automating a lot of back-office processes to really augmenting front-office teams like sales, marketing, and customer success. Could you talk a little bit about that transformation and how organizations are using this type of technology for their sales and marketing teams?
Yeah, so I absolutely would love to. And I think there was just so much insight that both Jason and Nipul brought that I'd love to weave some of that into, how you think about 2021 and some of the key digital investments you need to make to either, open up and make sure that you're converting your pipeline at higher rates because you're spending so much time in generating those leads. How can we get those new logos into a conversion opportunity faster? And then also taking a look across your entire customer revenue lifecycle. If you have a customer engagement process, aligning sales and marketing, and hopefully aligning sales and marketing, and then the teams that are responsible for your retention and expansion on the engagement front, what are you doing to make sure that that also aligns with driving revenue across the life cycle? But I think first and foremost, just because we're talking on the technology segment, when you think about intelligent automation, I think the first thing you have to ask is, well, what the heck is it? So I like to just kind of take a step back, and so we're all talking apples to apples here. What is intelligent automation? All right, I'm going to geek out for just about 2 seconds. But intelligent automation, it is literally the automation of business processes, interactions, and tasks using advanced technologies like artificial intelligence, robotic process automation, and machine learning. Basically, these are the things that are going to need to come together to make the brains and the engine fueling and powering any kind of intelligent automation solutions to be really smart. But here's the kicker. Spending in intelligent automation solutions is expected to grow over 50% between now and through 2025. It is a massive, over $200 billion market, and it is just critical for driving future value because actually KPMG found in a study that it conducted across organizations that it investigated that when these organizations invest in intelligent automation solutions, it can yield up to 10x dividends, right? So the investment is really important because the reward you get out of it is super important. And you were exactly right, Sally, in the sense that, you know, it's moving from back office to front office. And what do we mean by that? Well, look, intelligent automation solutions today have been well adopted in the back office. So just think of, you know, inventory management, think of manufacturing processes, think of things like procurement. You know, these are very repetitive workflows that are based on well-defined, structured, known data, which we typically call either machine-to-machine or human-to-machine interaction. And it could process things like, hey, I need to verify an invoice address before I send it, right? Something that once people used to do, but now you could use an intelligent automation solution to do, right? I need to do some part reordering when my supply is low. Again, can be automated. The points of this type of automation is really much focused around cost reduction, cost takeout, and focus on improving operational efficiencies. However, there's a really huge opportunity in the front office. And by the front office, we mean what about those marketing, sales, and customer success departments? How can they use intelligent automation solutions to untap opportunity in their departments? And what this is really focused on, when you think about first, what are we talking about? Well, how can we better automate some of those human-to-human interactions that drive or accelerate top-line growth? And it does so while improving the customer experience. You should not have to trade off between trying to drive growth and the customer experience. The two are intrinsically intertwined. You have to be able to do well at both. But what's tricky about being able to do this? Well, first off, automating, you know, human-to-human interaction means that you must have very human-like interactions. We all know what it's like to come in contact with something called a chatbot, right? A chatbot can feel very programmatic and very rigid in what it can or cannot do. It doesn't lend itself naturally to human-like experiences and sometimes not a great experience. The second area is around, it's because it's dealing with a lot of unstructured data. What we mean by that is that, hey, how I'm speaking today, how you and I interact, it's based on language, and language is very interpretive and that has a lot of different perceptions. How are you making sure that you can actually analyze whether it's written text or spoken word in a way that actually you could understand it, and then you know how to respond to it with a very relevant message so that you could drive towards the next best action. And if you can do this well in that marketing and sales environment, that pre-sales environment, as well in that post-sales environment, you're going to have a real substantial effect on revenue.
Yeah, and I think that today CMO, not that I think, we've asked CMOs that question, right? And they've said that beyond the CEO, they're the number one person that's expected to drive revenue and expected to drive growth within the organization. So to your point, Rashmi, the ability to actually scale the revenue in a way that you can actually point to those metrics and point to those proof points is vital for marketers to succeed today.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, hey, today's realities, right, is tough. Like what we're going through as CMOs, we're going through as sales leaders, we're even going through as customer success or those who are focused on the retention and expansion numbers of your company. It's hard. right? Because why? Well, we're going to go through, because of the pandemic in a pre or post or current COVID world, we have to go through economic volatility. That's just going to be nature of the beast. That's going to happen. That's definitely going to happen for at least the next 12 months, right? Obviously, we're continuing to make progressions to bring our world back into a recovery mode, but still we have to adapt into this new world. And one of the key ways of being able to adapt is to succeed in a digital, right now, digital-only world. If you want to call it digital-first world, a digitally enabled world, whatever it is, it's digital, right? And what I would submit is wherever you were when you entered the pandemic, and your digital transformation is what you used to survive, no doubt. But now, as we're looking at Q4 at the end of 2020 and we're looking into 2021, now is the time to really start thinking, hey, is the digital transformation initiatives I'm invested in, are they the ones that are actually going to help me recover and thrive in 2021, right? And are they the same? Now may be the case, yes, exactly the same. Let's keep marching forward. But there may be some new entrants you have to think about. And when we talk to CMOs, global sales leaders, and those customer success leaders, there's kind of three trends that we're seeing. One is, as a CMO, I'm being scrutinized every single week, month, whatnot, to determine, am I maximizing my ROI spend? Yes, we've had to shift from physical to digital. You heard Jason talk about the different virtual events, how to really optimize those virtual events. Other types of events to lead, field marketing is turned into, virtual round tables and panel discussions, right? That's going to continue happening. You're doing now more virtual interactive workshops. There's more, virtual happy hours, and creative ways of bringing people together so that you can just network and form bonds and relationships. That's really important. But how are you going to test the ROI on that? I think the second thing, the areas that sales organizations, are trying to figure out, what does the future of our sales workforce look like in 2021, right? Field sales takes on a completely different meaning, right? The redirection towards inside sales. How do you bring in those multi-million-dollar deals if you can't take somebody out to dinner, if you can't have the conversation over, a beer or a glass of wine, right? It really requires the sales teams themselves to restructure. But that being said, how can you scale sales productivity on demand? This is a real big challenge for organizations today, right? How can you scale it without breaking the bank? Because oftentimes, right now, obviously in 2021, a lot of sales organizations had to go through hiring freezes. Some had to go through some significant workforce reductions. But even as you're trying to claw back and prepare for 2021, it may not be a pure apples to apples replacement. You might need to think of different ways of restructuring your org. And then lastly, and I think everybody is feeling this, right, is the fact that we know it costs 5 times as much to acquire a new customer as it is to retain one. And during these periods of economic volatility, it's more important than ever to retain every dollar you possibly can that you've acquired. And so while always within a company's KPIs and metrics, it was always important to drive retention and expansion, it has now become downright critical, as revenue is the power line into your organization. So you need help. You need to have, these types of new ways of looking at it in order to support these trends, and intelligent automation solutions in augmenting the marketing, sales, and customer success teams is just such an important aspect of thinking about how you can continue to accelerate revenue while keeping those costs down across the entire customer lifecycle.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, as you said, we're really facing a time where folks need to find ways to be creative in order to accelerate their revenue. So talk to us a little bit, give us some of these proof points and real life examples of how intelligent virtual assistants can really increase the pipeline and revenue for organizations today.
Yeah, happy to. And just by way of just introduction to that, intelligent virtual assistants are a form of intelligent automation solutions. What they do, they are not just a chatbot, they're actually far more than that. Intelligent virtual assistants can actually engage a prospect or a customer in a natural back and forth conversation. It could be a real-time conversation. It could be a back and forth conversation to do one fundamental thing, and that's determine their interest, to determine the buyer's interest, to determine the customer's interest, to take that next best action. And in a prospect, in a buyer's point of view, it might be, hey, I'm ready to talk to a salesperson. Great, let's go set that up. In a customer's point of view, it might be, hey, I think I'm ready to set up that account review meeting, or maybe it's time for renewal, and I need to make sure that I'm ahead of that game. IVAs can help power those conversations across the entire customer revenue lifecycle. And one way to think about it is very simply, as marketing, sales, and customer success leaders, we need to be able to attract, acquire, retain, and grow our customers, right? That's when I think about the customer revenue very simply, that's kind of how I lay it out. And there are places for what I call AI-powered conversations, and then there's places for people-powered conversations. So let's walk through a few of those, right? Most of us are very familiar with website chat. That is that real-time interaction on your website. What it's really designed, think of website chat as an intelligent router. It is designed to connect people to the information they seek on their website. So whether that's learning more, maybe they want to ask a question, maybe they want to be able to schedule a demo, or finally they want to contact and get in touch with somebody. And that's a real-time interaction. But especially in B2B marketing and sales and in how complex that journey, that buyer's journey is, it doesn't just always happen. You can't close a deal through a website chat alone. You need to be able to engage with that buyer as they're going through that buyer's journey. So you can absolutely use AI-powered conversations to drive people to things like your virtual events, be able to follow up with people from those who attended those virtual events. In fact, our research has shown that if you can engage with somebody who attended your webinar within minutes of them attending, you have a 21 times higher likelihood of engaging with them leading to a meeting than if you didn't. And we know that it takes the sales teams, whether it's sales development, if you have a sales development team or inside team, sometimes could take them more than 24 hours. It could take them 3 days, up to a week to respond. And every 12 hours you wait, your chance of connecting with them really drops down. And then we know that the whole idea here is if you can use these AI-powered conversations to engage that inbound demand, to engage those third-party content syndication, to engage those leads that are coming in, and then you find whether they're sales ready, then you hand them off to your people. And as we said, right, we're talking about how do you determine what's high quality and what's not, right? How do you determine how you do your lead scoring and saying, hey, what are truly my A leads versus my B, C, and D leads? Well, one way of determining what your high-quality leads are, if your leads are actually raising their hand and saying, I'm ready to talk to a salesperson, then you know for sure that your sales team should definitely engage. And what are people great at doing? They're great at creating that value, having those value-driven conversations, building those trusted relationships with their buyers, and helping them understand how they can help solve their own business problems. But not all deals just kind of move smoothly, too. And so as you think about going through acquiring, you can absolutely have AI-powered conversations reignite an open opportunity. If something has gone, a little quiet, as after a salesperson has touched the lead and has gone a little quiet, you can absolutely use an AI-powered conversation. And then you bring the human back in to continue to elevate the value, to make sure you're continuing the conversation around why invest and why now. And then it kind of moves down the customer life cycle. There's opportunities to use AI-powered conversations to win back former customers. If they used to be a customer and you haven't reached back out to them, use an IVA to go reach out and see if they're back interested in having another conversation. And as we talked about, let's not forget about retention and growth, because it is so extremely powerful to be able to use AI-powered conversations to drive customer health from when they first onboard, to schedule those account reviews, and to see and identify those renewal and expansion opportunities. And look, the results are pretty great, right? No longer do you have to say, we talk about marketing and sales alignment. One of the key things that marketing always says is, hey, sales, how are you doing on the leads that I'm sending you? I can't even have full visibility and accountability into how those leads are getting worked. And sales is always asking for better, higher quality leads. Well, when you can combine AI-powered conversations with people-powered conversations, you will 100% get that 100% lead coverage against all leads, not just some of the leads, all leads. You can drive higher conversion rates on average. On average, the minimum we see with our customers using an IVA is a 4-to-1 ROI. So for every dollar invested, they get $4 back. That is pretty amazing. And then obviously reduction of those churn and of those an increase in those expansion dollars. And if I can, there's just one example I'd love to be able to give. We have so many, but in the sake of time, I'm going to go over one. We work with Epson. Epson is a great, amazing brand. Been around for a good long time. And one of the things that was really interesting about Epson, I mean, many of us have had to deal with this, is that they were generating thousands of leads a month that were taking a long time for their salespeople to follow up with. They had not bad engagement rate. I mean, they had a 21% engagement rate. They had an 18% conversion from MQL to SQL. Not bad, but as they were looking at their overall volume and they were looking at how long it was taking for their salespeople to follow up, they just said, you know, there's still a tremendous amount of opportunity that we're leaving on the table that we're not translating into pipeline and not translating into revenue. And so they wanted to take a hold of this, so that they then instituted using an intelligent virtual assistant on their sales side. Actually, a lot of our customers give full-on profiles and names, et cetera, to their IVAs. They called their assistant Rachel. And so what Rachel was able to do was just pretty astonishing. In the first 90 days, Rachel was able to work their leads, thousands of leads, and what they found was initial results in the first 90 days, 240% increase in engagement. They went from, you know, they saw that 51% engagement rate, 31 overall now. They're at a 31% conversion from MQL to SQL. Going from 18% to 31% in your conversion from MQL to SQL is pretty phenomenal. And then from there, they saw, they got an additional $2 million of incremental revenue in that first 90 days, and that's first 90 days alone. In their last fiscal year, Conversica has helped influence now over $24 million of pipeline in that time, and they're just continuing to see tremendous value. So here's a really great example of, hey, if you think things are stuck in your funnel, you want to continue to optimize your funnel, and you want to continue to drive higher conversion, this is a great time to think about digital investments like an intelligent virtual assistant, especially as you're thinking about your 2021 and beyond.
Great. And I'm just going to jump into a couple audience questions here. And Rashmi, since I have you, if you wouldn't mind answering this one, if I'm interested in incorporating some of these AI-powered tools, are there other steps that I need to take to set myself up for success actually implementing them?
Yeah, setting yourself up for success. I mean, I think one is, yes. One, look, like anything else, this is a tool that a lot of times is a little solution that I could talk specifically to IBM. But oftentimes marketing really wants this to be able to drive better funnel optimization. And two, you need to work with your sales leadership to help them understand how this fits into their existing process. And what we're finding is that when we talk to sales leaders and we say, hey, you know, you can drive and scale productivity of going from that MQL to SQL quite a bit. Wouldn't you want to do that at a fraction of the cost? You know, their eyes really light up. So I think it's being able to get both marketing and sales on board to make sure that they see the value of doing this, not only just from a marketing lens, but also from a sales lens.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And Nipul, building on that, what would you tell marketing and sales peers that are still acting as individual silos, given that you've just undergone this transformation? What words of wisdom would you share with them?
Yeah, I mean, well, first, if you're a marketer, get to know your local sales rep, right? You know, Obviously, I think like I'm always a big believer in kind of the crawl, walk, run, fly metaphor, right? And so, I would say that, at least as a starting point, get on the same page in terms of, what are your shared objectives, right? Where is it that marketing is going to drive value? And where is it that, sales, is going to take over? These days, the idea where like marketing does the top of the funnel and then hands it off to sales, I think those days are really over, regardless of whether you're selling to enterprise companies or small business. I think marketing needs to be involved across the entire funnel. And so as kind of a step one, if you will, I think it's really important for marketing and sales leaders to get together to really understand, how can they better collaborate together, and what are the specific kind of metrics that marketing can help to move as part of that, kind of buyer journey, if you will.
Yeah, fantastic. And I know we're just at the hour, but before we get kicked off the line, Jason, I want to kick this last one to you. What would you tell marketers in terms of advice and next steps to better articulate the ROI of their marketing programs?
Yeah, it's a great question, Sally. And I think, one of the key elements here that we're actually going back and revisiting as well is attribution, because so much of our attribution was based on what we called a high quality touch, which was, basically a physical event attend or a high intent interaction on the website, like what Rashmi described, right? But we're having to go back and look at that. And then we're actually then evaluating, based on marketing source pipeline, what multiple or what return on the dollar spend do we have to generate in pipeline? So if we needed to generate, 30 to 40 times return, i.e. $1 marketing spend equals $30 in pipeline, it kind of gives us an indicator of how we have to be efficient with our funds. And then also looking at, the channels by which we're selling. We have a big partner channel, we've got direct sales, and then we've got SDRs, and then marketing source, right? And then I'm making sure my team is actually optimized across those channels depending on the target for pipeline in each one of them, and then looking at the return that I need to return on each one of the dollars I spend in marketing. So we're maximizing our tactics.
All right. I love it. Thank you so much to our three speakers. Thank you, everyone that joined us today. It's all the time we have. It's all we have time for today. Unfortunately, I wish we could keep digging in with our three speakers. But again, thank you, everyone, so much. I will be following up on email with a link to the on-demand and to the presentation itself. So everyone have a lovely day, and thank you to Jason, Nipul, and Rashmi.
Great. Thank you, Sally.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.